Good morning. It is wonderful to be together again today. Several years ago, there was a mother who had 8 children. They lived in Maryland. She was accustomed to having 8 children, a house being loud, house being rowdy, kids hollering at each other, kids fighting with one another, kids wrestling. She'd been at the grocery store. And she came home one afternoon. It seemed unusually quiet when she walked in the house. And she looked there in the living room and saw 5 of her children all sitting in a circle, playing with one another. They're quiet. They're being kind. There was no one screaming, no one hollering. She was curious, what is going on? This is not usual. So she decided to go put the groceries down in the kitchen. And when she came back and she got closer to the children, she saw in the middle of these 5 kids were 5 furry little creatures. And as she got closer, she noticed there were 5 small skunks sitting there in the center of all of her children. Now, they had been calm. They had been quiet. They hadn't caused any disturbance. But as soon as Mom saw them, without thinking, she hollers to her children, "Run, kids, run!" And as they run, they each grab a skunk. They each squeeze that skunk as they run. And, well, skunks don't like to be squeezed. Things got unpleasant rather quickly. There had been no danger, at least not that they knew of, until Mom alerted them of this danger. The 46th Psalm, the Israelites are living at peace. Things aren't going bad for them right now, but on all sides of them, all around them, are enemies. Nations who want to take control of where they are. But they're living in peace right now. There's no trouble there. There's no danger. Things are going well. And they'll stay that way as long as they don't give in to their fear, as long as they don't panic, as long as they don't enter into despair, things will be okay. And so the psalmist in the 46th Psalm is saying exactly that. God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way. We will not fear. What a great thing to say, a great thing to believe, a great thing to teach. We will not fear. Though the earth give way, though everything crash around us, though everything go bad, we will not fear. But if we're honest, there's times when this "we will not fear" thing is a little difficult. It's a little hard, and we think, how am I not supposed to be afraid? How am I supposed to be strong during this trial? The Israelites, during this day when the psalmist wrote this, had a lot of things to fear. They had injury. They had disease, death, storms, earthquakes, droughts, famines, and of course the occasional nation that wanted to come in and overpower you. They had plenty to be fearful for. In many ways, we think we have it bad, but don't we have it so much better than they did? We have doctors and nurses and hospitals. We have emergency rooms, and we have clinics we can go to. We have insurance to help pay the bills. We have Medicare. We have Medicaid. We have retirement benefits and food stamps and housing for the poor. We have police officers. We have firefighters. We have a strong military to defend our nation. And yet, fear still controls us so many times. There are studies that show that here in America, we are amongst the most stressed and fear-ridden people in all of the world. But why? Why are we so afraid? Because fear is a natural response to the unknown. There are things we can't control. There are things that we can't do anything about. And it scares us. When life gets hard, we fear. When danger shows its head, we fear. When there's a threat to our livelihood, when we face disease or injury or even death, we fear. And even the most spiritual amongst us can be afraid. Fear is a reality, and all of us experience it. Fear grabs a hold of us. We become anxious. We become desperate. We become powerless. We get miserable. But God says, don't let that happen. Do not be afraid. Over and over again through Scripture we have the command, do not be afraid. But how do we do that? How do we not be afraid? How do I deal with that fear when it's there, knocking at the door? How can I not be afraid? As we examine the text, I think the first thing that we come to shows us that we need to recognize that the fear that we have before us may be very real. There's times when we fear things and there's nothing to them, but there are times when the thing that we fear the most may very well be real. And God knows that. God is not indifferent to what we struggle with. God, through His Son Jesus, in the book of John, tells us, in this world, you will have trouble. He knows that we'll face those things. We sing the song, this world is not my home. I'm just a passing through. My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. This world isn't our home. If we were at home, we would be in heaven with God. There would be no pain. There would be no trouble anymore. In the book of Revelation, in chapter 21, verse 4, He tells us that He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will no longer be mourning or crying or pain. No trouble. No sorrow. No crying. No pain. But for today, for right now, while we're in this world, we will face trouble. Just like everyone else will face trouble. But though we face these troubles, the blessing of facing those troubles as a Christian is that we do not face those troubles alone. Because God says He'll never leave us alone. The 46th Psalm there, verse 1, He says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in our trouble. He's there. He's there with us to comfort us, to take care of us, to help us through that. He repeats this phrase that's also found in Deuteronomy 31, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you or forsake you. The writer of Hebrews reiterates that phrase once again in chapter 13. Because the God that promised the Israelites to never leave them nor forsake them is the God that promises to never leave us or forsake us. He wants to reiterate that, to make that known. And there in verses 7 and 11 of this psalm, he tells us, the Lord of hosts is with us, the God of Jacob is our refuge or our fortress. God will never leave us. God will never forsake us. And when we have that kind of attitude, fear can never control us. Fear can never tell us what to do. But there's more to this psalm. Here in the middle of the psalm, in verses 4 and 5, he says, "There's a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns." See, back in ancient Israel, in those times when a nation wanted to overpower a nation, they would go and surround that city. They would go and surround and try to cut off all their food, all their supply. They wanted to cut off the water supply most of all, because if there was a water supply, the city could stand. The city could continue to fight against the outside forces. But oftentimes, the water in those cities was from a well or from a small stream that was easily stopped. But if there was a river that ran through that city, if there was water flowing that was pure and clean, it not only provided a source to drink from, it was a source of joy. God will not only be with us through the troubles, He provides us a source of pleasure, a source of joy, and a source of gladness. He gives us cool, refreshing water to drink, even in our times of suffering. And before he ends this psalm, he gives a command. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. Two parts to that command. Be still. Be quiet. Don't move. Don't fuss. Don't fidget. Be still. I think about being still, and I remember back to being a child, running around, getting in trouble, getting in things I shouldn't, but I remember most of all getting splinters and going to Mom because Mom's going to be kinder, right? Mom's going to be nicer about it. Mom's going to be more compassionate. And every time I had a splinter and went to Mom, she would say, go see your dad, Daniel. Go have him remove that. And I thought, that hurts when he removes those splinters, Mom. But I would go and tell Dad I have a splinter, and so he would get out a needle, he would get out the tweezers, often walking into the room with a needle and a lighter, sanitizing that needle, but I often thought, what's he about to do with that hot needle in my finger? And he would take that needle, and he would take my hand, and he would look to find that splinter. And as he's about to remove that splinter, and he's got that needle close to my hand, I remember jerking my hand away from Dad, saying, it's going to hurt. He would take me by the hand, and he would say, Daniel, if you want me to help you, if you want me to get this splinter out of your hand, you have to be still. Be still. And we forget to be still because we forget the second part of that command. Be still and know I am God. God asks, just trust me. I'll help you through this. I'll get you through the struggle. Just be still. God asks, do you trust me? I can take care of this. Do you trust me? We look back to the examples through all of the Scripture that shows men and women of faith who trusted God and he got them through things. We see Moses leading a nation out of captivity. Elijah facing off with so many prophets. Esther entering into the king's palace, knowing it could cost her life. All of these people putting their lives on the line, and we say, but I'm not Moses, I'm not Elijah. I'm not Esther. And we're not. But we serve that same God who tells us, be still. Know that I am God. Know that I can conquer this. I can get you through the troubles. And as we enter into this week of Thanksgiving, may we all take some time to be still and to know He is God. He is in control. And if you are a Christian, you have that promise. God will be there. If you are not a Christian, you can have that promise. If you will surrender your life to Him, if you will give your life to Him, be buried in the waters of baptism, and commit to living your life to following Him. Maybe you've wandered away, and you need to come home to receive that promise once again. Today we offer the invitation. Whatever it is that you may need, won't you come while we stand and while we sing?